I never thought the person who would destroy my marriage would be my father. That still feels wrong to write. My wife and I had been together 6 years, married for 2. Normal life. No big fights. We were even talking about trying for a baby soon. And my dad, well, he'd always been charming. Everyone loved him. The funny, supportive father who helped us move, fix things around the house. Came over for dinner every Sunday. The first strange thing was how often my wife started mentioning him. Your dad is so kind. He really understands relationships. I wish you listened like he does. I laughed it off. Then she started dressing nicer on Sundays. Then she started staying late after dinner to help him clean up. One night I joked, "Careful, he'll steal you from me." She didn't laugh. She just said quietly, "That's not funny." The discovery came from a voicemail. I was driving to work when my phone connected to the car and started playing a message I didn't remember opening. My wife's voice. Soft, intimate. "I miss you already. Last night was dangerous." Then a man laughed. My father's laugh. I almost crashed. I pulled over shaking, replayed it 3 times, hoping I was wrong. I wasn't. That night, I checked our phone records. Hundreds of calls between them. Late at night, while I was asleep, then I checked our shared laptop. There was a hidden folder. Photos. Hotel rooms. Her in his arms. And the worst one, a message from her that said, "If he ever finds out, we'll say you were helping me leave him." Helping her leave me. With my own father. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I started recording everything. The next week, I noticed how they looked at each other across the table. How he touched her hand when he thought I wasn't watching. How she defended him whenever I disagreed with him. Then the twist I didn't expect. My wife started accusing me of cheating. Out of nowhere. Asked who I was texting. Asked why I came home late. Told my mother she was worried about my behavior. One night, she said calmly, "If our marriage ends, it won't be because of me." That's when I understood something terrifying. This wasn't just an affair. They were already planning how to make me the villain, and how to take everything I had. The next twist came from my mother. She called me one afternoon, voice tight, pretending everything was normal. Then, very carefully, she asked, "Are you happy in your marriage?" I laughed and said, "Of course." There was a long pause. Then she said quietly, "Your wife seems worried about you lately." My stomach dropped. Apparently, my wife had started visiting her for coffee while I was at work, telling her I'd been distant, that I snapped easily, that I scared her sometimes when I was stressed. My own mother told me she was afraid I was turning into my grandfather, a man who had actually been abusive decades ago. They were rewriting my family history. That night, I recorded a dinner. My father casually said, "Marriage can fail when men don't listen." My wife nodded and said, "Some men don't know how dangerous they can be." They were testing lines, practicing. The second twist came from money. I logged into our joint account and noticed something missing. Not a lot, just small transfers. $300 here, $500 there. Always late at night. Always an account I didn't recognize. I followed it. The account was in my father's name, not even hidden. When I checked deeper, my hands went numb. They'd been moving money for months. Savings, emergency fund, even part of my inheritance from my grandfather. Then I found a draft email on my wife's phone. Unsent, addressed to a lawyer. Subject, divorce plus domestic violence options. Inside, one sentence destroyed me. My husband's father is helping me leave safely. Helping her leave. By stealing my life. The third twist almost ended me. My boss called me in. Said HR had received an anonymous complaint. That I had anger issues. That I scared women at work. That I'd once punched a wall. All lies, but detailed. Too detailed. That night, my wife slept with her phone recording. Left the bedroom door open. And whispered loudly on a call to my father, "If he explodes soon, everything will be easier." That was the moment I realized the truth. They weren't planning a divorce. They were planning a crime. And if I didn't move first, My own father was going to help send me to prison. The police came 2 nights later. I wasn't even surprised. I was washing dishes when the knock started. Not loud, careful, controlled. 2 officers stood at the door, calm voices, hands near their belts. They said they'd received a call about a domestic disturbance, a woman afraid for her safety. My wife stood behind them, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen, whispering that she was just scared sometimes. My father arrived 10 minutes later, pretending to be shocked, telling the officers he'd seen me lose my temper before. My mother stood in the kitchen crying, saying, "Please don't take my son. He's not a bad man, he just needs help." Help. That word almost broke me. They separated us, asked if I'd ever hurt her, if I'd thrown things, if I drank too much, and then they said the sentence I feared. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us for a statement." At the station, I finally played my card. I asked to speak to the detective alone, showed him the voicemail, the recordings, the bank transfers, the draft email, hours of audio of my wife and father planning. The detective didn't interrupt once. When it ended, he leaned back and said quietly, "That's your father?" I nodded. He left the room, came back with 2 supervisors. By sunrise, I was free, and my wife wasn't. The arrest happened at home. They took her in front of my parents. Handcuffs. No screaming. No crying. She looked straight at my father and said, "You promise you protect me." He went pale. Then they turned to him and said they needed him to come in too, for questioning. My mother collapsed into a chair. That was the first time she finally looked at me and whispered, "Oh my God, what do we do?" When they searched my father's house, they found everything: cash envelopes, a second phone, printouts from divorce lawyers, a signed agreement between him and my wife. If I went to prison, she would get the house, and he would get half of my inheritance. In writing, in his handwriting. That night, sitting alone in my empty house, I understood something that still makes me sick. My wife hadn't seduced my father. My father had chosen her over his own son, and they had almost won. The trial started 4 months later. I sat alone on one side of the courtroom. My wife and my father sat together on the other. They didn't touch, didn't look at each other, didn't look at me. The charges were brutal: conspiracy, fraud, theft, false police reports, attempted framing of domestic violence. When the prosecutor played the voicemail in court, my father's laugh echoed through the room. People gasped. My mother covered her mouth and started sobbing. Then came the contract, the one they'd signed. If husband is incarcerated, wife receives full ownership of property and inheritance. Father receives 50%. In my father's handwriting. The judge stared at him for a long time and said, "You didn't just betray your son. You tried to erase him." The verdict came fast. My wife was sentenced to 3 years in prison. My father got 5. No parole for at least 2. When they took him away, he finally looked at me and whispered, I was trying to save her. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Forgive me." That was the moment I stopped having a father. My mother didn't speak to me for weeks. Then, one night, she came to my house, sat at the kitchen table, and told me the truth. She'd known, not everything, but enough. She knew they were close. She knew about the money. She believed them when they said I was dangerous. She said she chose to believe them because it was easier than believing my husband could do this. That hurt more than anything else. She cried and asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her honestly, I don't know. And that was the last real conversation we ever had. She moved away shortly after. Here's my final update. It's been a year. I'm divorced. I sold the house, changed cities, started over with almost nothing. Sometimes I still wake up shaking when I hear my phone ring at night. Sometimes I still hear my father's laugh in my head. But I'm alive. And I'm free. If you take anything from this story, take this: the most dangerous betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from people who already know exactly how to destroy you. Trust your instincts. Record everything. And if someone starts telling stories about you before anything happens, run, because heartbreak is painful. But being betrayed by your own blood, that almost ended me. I survived, and that's the only ending that matters.